for instance, if the gun manufacturer had an outdoor shooting range and it made noise.
Right. I think guns are, restricted at other places, but let's say manufacturer of motorcycles or skateboards or things like that. I'm not sure where this public's opportunity would be to weigh in on that.
Oh, because it does not go in front of license.
Point, it doesn't go in front of planning necessarily because it doesn't change the size, but this says they could do it theoretically if it doesn't exceed 15% of the total floor space for the principal use. There are noise ordinance and noxious fume ordinance, in general, but it might be.
That's the thing, is trying to imagine the possibilities and trying to predict who it would go in front of. That's worrisome. Like that there's some product we're not thinking of that would not go in front of license, but would cause problems for the neighbors.
Right.
That is problematic. Where if it goes in front of planning board, we know it will be vetted. Unfortunately, if it's liquor, it would be vetted twice. But for things that would not go in front of license that need to be vetted, then the public could weigh in on it. So because it's so nebulous, that makes it hard. If it were only alcohol, and we know it would go in front of license, that makes it clearer. So it's a conundrum.
But it was drafted to be a little more general to pick up similar things. But I think if we wanted to pare it down back to tap rooms, which is obviously the motivation for this, and just have it just considered tap room use. We may need to add a definition somewhere of what a tap room is or that type of thing. But if we're trying to imagine every possible worst case, maybe Councilor Figge might prefer we just kind of focus on what really was the issue.
Yeah, if tap room is what brought this whole thing to the surface, and then trying to think of other options, it was like, I don't know, like right. Councilor Matthews-Keynes was saying, it's very nebulous, it's a conundrum. But if we want to limit it strictly to tap rooms so the license commission has it, I don't see that as an issue. I would be fine with that.
Okay.
I think part of maybe my bigger picture is maybe restaurants don't belong in industrial A as a use, and that this would allow the ice cream factory to have their tours and sampling. So I was, kind of bigger looking at things, but
yeah. All right, and Ralph, if I researched the thing too, and I think the tap rooms have a special state permit, right? Do they call it like a brewer's license or pour permit or something like that? Is there?
Well, they got
those that only applies to tap rooms?
Yeah, they got two different things. First, they need a farm brewery license. Yeah. And then once they get that, they go to the license commission. If they get the license there, then they go back for a farm servers pouring permit.
And the only thing that farm servers pouring permit is for these types of places, right? It doesn't apply to other places.
Correct. And again, it has to be manufactured on site to be served. So that's a key. You couldn't bring in 2 or 3 different microbreweries into one tap room.
Right.
Each one would have to have their own license,
Okay.
And like I said,
our definition of tap room could include a reference to the state farmers pour permit thing.
Yeah.
That might help clarify what a tap room is. Okay.
Yeah, well, without that, they couldn't operate. So, I mean, that's just part of the natural process.
I'm just thinking about the definition, because a tap room, a lot of people that are your age and older think of the tap room in a different way. They remember going out dancing and wearing fancy shoes and stuff.
Well, not this guy. I got 2 left feet, friend.
Yeah. So, all right. I think what I'd like to do is leave this in committee and then have another meeting next Wednesday and give us time to work on this, and then come back next Wednesday before the full council meeting, clean it up, and then make a vote. Does that sound appropriate to Councilors Matthews-Keynes and Morganelli?
Yeah, I mean, we can look at our calendars, and I have to look at my calendar and see, but that's probably okay. I do have a
Okay,
something else too. Well, actually, it's for public participation, but
okay. Public participation on this
yeah.
week. We already closed public participation at the public hearing.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I was thinking of, that's right. I'm thinking of Council Mello coming in. But Council Mello has she's coming in, right, to talk about.
Yeah, does she understand that we moved public participation to later in the meeting so she would have a chance to speak? I
But
mean,
she can't. But Mr. Chairman, you just said we can't have it.
Oh,
Well,
on this issue.
On this issue, right. She
Right.
has a broader issue that applies to this and other things, though, that we can
Oh,
take.
she
back, but
did
not
have
specific.
an extensive email on this, so okay. All right. No, I was just going to ask about former Councilor Babinski's messages, but she stated it on September 16th, and she sent to all of us that.
Right, the January 20th one. So
Yeah,
I read parts
Yeah.
of that.
Right.
And
Yeah,
expressed
I
her
just
concern.
wanted to just give her a mention and say that she was very concerned about, just to reiterate what she said is she thought it deserves a special permit. That's all.
Yes, and also she talked about the environmental justice communities and concerns there. And
Right.
we made note of that, and then we're going to get a letter from the law department. So I see that Councilor Mello is here, but let's decide what we're going to do with this first, and then we'll let Councilor Mello in. So could I have a motion to, first, are you available next Wednesday? That's before we, okay.
6:30?
Yes. Okay, so a motion to hold in committee until next Wednesday at 6:30.
So moved.
Can we not say Wednesday though? Because if that's not good for Zoom meetings and everybody's schedule, but the plan is to do it next week, but I don't think we need
Before Thursday.
to be that specific.
Okay, motion to leave in committee until next week, and I'll schedule a meeting before Thursday.
So
Is that
moved.
fair? Okay,
Is there a second?
Second.
Nick, okay, so we're gonna vote. Councilor Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Councilor Morganelli,
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Okay, so 3-0. Thank you, Jay. We're gonna hold this. We'll try to make the edits and then bring it out final language so we can refer to full council on Thursday. Okay, now we're gonna go back to public participation, item number 1, and allow Councilor Mello, as a private citizen, to express an opinion on a matter that's not in front of us for public hearing. So Councilor Mello.
Hi, I was only going to come as a counselor to reiterate things that were mentioned on the floor that I had asked the committee to look into on the matter that I sent you the email about. So it wasn't participation. I just wanted to remind you the questions that I had asked on the floor for ZPD to look into while you had this issue.
Okay, so I think we covered most of the things that you asked about, and former Councilor Babinski also sent, a letter that had similar concerns. You might not have been here when we talked about the law department. The law department has sent us an opinion. Attorney Bristol and Attorney Reed have written a long letter to the city council that we should have before the next council meeting about environmental justice concerns and how it applies to local zoning matters. Their opinion is going to say that environmental justice law only applies to state level issues like MEPA reviews and siting council reviews and things like that. It does not apply to local zoning matters. We should have that in council next week. And then as part of our discussion, we did talk about many of the concerns expressed by Councilor Babinski and you with regard to approval of these things, the special permits, what else it might apply to other types of products, weapons, drugs, marijuana, repair of certain devices, fumes, noise, that kind of stuff. So we did talk about that. And
Correct. And did you discuss the fact that the planning board and the city council received several public participations the last time this came before us, begging us to make things special permit, not by right?
I don't think we said that directly, but we did.
That's what I'm here to say.
Yep, well, I think Councilor Matthews Kane represented that position, I think, pretty well in her questioning. I don't think we made a commitment on it, or we didn't even take a vote on that matter. But I think the position was well represented. Councilors Matthew Kane or Morganelli, do you want to answer that question?
Restate the question, please. What's your specific question?
The question was that Councilor Mello wanted to remind us that in previous applications, there was opposition to this and that several people requested a special permit. The planning board, I believe, was a similar vote. It was majority to recommend without a special permit, and there was one person that recommended a special permit. Okay, Councilor Matthews Kane.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to reiterate, we haven't decided if we're going to vote it up or down or with restrictions. It's still in committee. And I did ask, because I'm just curious, like, what are the powers of license versus the powers of the planning board, and what can they weigh in on and not weigh in on? And it's going to be actually much easier to think about it if we do come back with a revision where it's just tap rooms, because I think part of the complicated nature of this discussion was it was so nebulous in trying to think of all possible scenarios, and we can just focus on just focus on tap rooms, which have to go in front of license.
Okay.
And I think we can have a cleaner discussion next round,
Yes,
if that's what the presentation is on. And we will still be discussing if it should just be by right or special permit in front of another group. But it was almost like too complicated to talk about with all these potential scenarios. So.
All right, I agree. I'll hold it, and I'll talk to Councilor Figge and Planner Vinsky and the law department before our next meeting. And, we want to keep this on the fast track. There is, somebody who would like this, I believe. So we want to try to get it done quickly. So I'd like to propose Wednesday at 6:30. If that doesn't work, I'll look at the calendar and see what else works. I know Councilor Morganelli usually prefers Thursday. If we can have a Thursday, 5 or 6 or something meeting, that would work too. But I'll run it by everybody's schedules.
Wednesday's okay in my schedule. I don't see anything pressing there.
And Council Matthews Kane, is that good for you? I know you have another one.
No, I have one Monday.
Okay.
Wednesday.
All right. So let's pencil in Wednesday 6:30, and I'll confirm with everybody and the IT department and all that.
All right. And
Okay, Council Morganelli.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to reiterate what Councilor Matthews Kane said, that we are going to look at this a little more closely. I'm curious. I mean, at the last council meeting, I think, or at the last public hearing for this, it was brought up about golf balls and having a virtual golf and that kind of thing, and then it led to all this other stuff with the ice cream discussion and Councilor Matthews Kane brought up and other things. But I thought, I mean, what is the language in this that why isn't the language specific to alcoholic beverages? Why does it have to include all this other stuff?
Well, I think they thought it would be a nice feature for our manufacturing businesses to have a retail, facility available.
Okay, well, but isn't the alcohol? Is it the alcohol part that people are concerned about, or is it in general having these I guess it is having the manufacturing business now open up to potentially doing so. I don't really see them doing that. I don't, but I get it. I mean, we've got a lot of manufacturing, especially Ward 1. There's a bunch of, but like for instance, someone starts manufacturing axes that you throw, and then they open up an axe house.
Right.
Come on in and try our axes out.
But that's already, the thing is, that's already in the ordinances by right. Like the current ordinance is retail sales where such sales involve products being manufactured, processed, warehoused, distributed, or wholesaled by the principal permitted use. So being manufactured by the principal permitted use. So like say the knife guy, you know, over near the old Kentucky Fried Chicken, there's a knife manufacturer there. They're allowed to have a retail sales. You know, Columbia Manufacturing could sell their desks if they wanted to, or their furniture out of their place. So it is already allowed. It's just a concern that that didn't include specifically tap rooms. So I think that's what drove this issue.
Okay, so I think this, you know, I'm confident that this committee will look at that and get the answers from law, and if we have to change the language a little bit so that next week when we vote on this, we feel good about it, and residents will feel good about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Council Melly, you all set?
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you for coming in. Okay, item number 5 is motion that Zoning Planning Development Committee be requested to explore and report back to process of requesting a 1-year moratorium on any new truck terminal development on the north side of Westfield. That was submitted in 2019. It's been discussed before. Mr. Vinsky and Attorney Reed have sent us emails today. It includes sample language and opinions. I talked to Attorney Reed after the emails came out and just reviewed her concerns. Her concerns are we don't want to make this so broad that it's not defendable, that we have to have a specific issue in mind and specific timeframes to make it happen. She believes that reasonable timeframes driven by reasonable actions of the city are certainly defendable. Reasonable concerns of the city are defendable. But if it's so broad that it takes in too much without being reasonable, then it might be a problem. So did you all get a chance to see Mr. Vinsky's proposal, section 4-50 temporary moratorium? Okay. All right, Jay, do you want to just talk a little bit about it, and then we'll open for questions and discussion?
Right, so just, I know this originally started in council a couple of years back for truck terminals, and truck terminals is a city council special permit use. The planning board, in talking about things over the last year, decided they kind of, I don't know if they came up with their own or they wanted to move that idea forward, and talked about, you know, warehouses and distribution centers that also effectively create the same issues with trucks through the city. So they kind of wanted to see more or less what I had drafted, which is, you know, these larger truck producing uses, warehouses, distribution centers, truck terminals, kind of put on pause until the master plan process can play out, and maybe we can explore some ideas for mitigation through that process. So I understand Attorney Reed's concern that maybe that's just getting too broad and indefensible. Although the focus, the issue is pretty clear, whether it's a warehouse or a truck terminal. I think the same issues are kind of materializing with truck traffic. So I guess, I would look to her for, more clarity on what would be an acceptable item or acceptable language. But I will say, like most of our zoning, there's some confusing things in it. So we have something called a truck terminal, Old Dominion. And we also have a use called a distribution center. I'm not sure what really the difference is. We do have a definition, I think, of truck terminals. We don't define distribution centers or transfer/distribution centers. So I guess
that's not included in the definition of truck terminal?
No, distribution centers are a planning board. May or may not be special permit, but if it's a site plan approval, it goes to the planning board. But something that's a truck terminal is a city council special permit.
Okay.
So, if someone comes to you and they say, here, I want to propose a truck terminal, I said, okay, that's a city council special permit. I said, ugh, no, it's a distribution center. I'm not really sure how, what, we don't clarify what's what. So that kind of complicates some type of moratorium. So that was one of the reasons to kind of have a more expanded language. So,
And then the manufacturing processing operations. So the guy near the airport that makes artificial joints, he's a manufacturer. He can have as many trucks as he wants because he's a manufacturer. It wouldn't apply to him if he expands his business.
right.
Or like that.
And I can understand, maybe the legal issue saying, well, that's creating the same issue just because you're manufacturing.
Right.
Truck traffic is still materialized.
Right. And the same with retail.
Yeah,
Like,
some of the guys from the planning board, they said, well, manufacturing is okay if they're creating trucks, but warehouses we don't like.
Okay.
So it's kind of figuring out how all these come together. But I guess what's officially on your agenda, what came to you from your council motion was truck terminals, period. And I can only think of one that's been permitted in my tenure. That's the Old Dominion. So I don't know how many actual truck terminals we really would be looking at anyway. I know we're looking at a distribution center.
Yep.
So.
Like yellow freight is available if somebody wanted to take that, and it's already, right, it's there, it's built, somebody could take that over. All right, and then the moratorium expiration, I think I originally asked for it to be related to the master plan. When I talked to Attorney Reed today, she said, yeah, that's a very doable thing. It's reasonable for the city to have a moratorium while we're in the master plan process. The submission today said this moratorium shall expire 30 days after the planning board's adoption of a new master plan intended to comprehensively study such impacts, or June 30th, whichever is June 30th, 2023, whichever is earlier. And my review of it, I would like to see that 30 days extended and expire at the later of 180 days after the planning board's adoption of the new Westfield master plan. So if we have a master plan, there might be some zone changes suggested in that master plan that take a process that takes more than 30 days. For example, you might have to create new zoning ordinances and then run them by planning board and city council, have public hearings. So that can take more than 30 days. So I'm a little concerned about that. So one of the amendments I would suggest would be that we extend that to 180 days. And then we also have a recently approved air quality monitoring program on the north side. We got some money for that. I don't know if we've bought the devices or installed them yet, but I also think it's important that we get about a year's worth of air quality sampling before we allow new heavy truck traffic up there. And I'm concerned about the construction of the roadways. There's potential to redo the Mass Pike exit 41 and all the roads in that general vicinity, like Southampton Road Arch, Lock House, Service Star, Ampad, Summit Lock. So I think it's important that we weigh that plan in before we decide to open back up a truck terminal. I'm not sure how best to put that in there, but I think the air quality one is pretty easy. We can say, okay, after 1 year analysis of the air quality monitoring devices, put that as one of the deadlines. What do you guys think about that? So Council Matthews, Kane, and Morgan Elliott, what do you?
I guess I'm unclear how I raise my hand.
Yes, go ahead, Council Matthews.
I'm unclear how the air quality ties in with the timing, like how that's a true.
Well, there's a lot of people up there concerned that the air quality is already bad enough.
Oh,
So
I understand the
If
reason.
we monitor that for a year and we get some bad things back, we could use that to maybe decide that we don't want truck terminals anywhere up there. So that might be one of the things that we want to look at before we rescind this moratorium. I mean, the way it's written now, the moratorium will expire 30 days after the planning board's adoption of the master plan. But I'm suggesting that we also add another clause that it doesn't expire until we've had a year's worth of air quality monitoring. So we can decide whether we want to allow truck terminals again. Council Morganelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So would that monitoring start right after the planning board decision, given it's a favorable decision? Would that start right after this, since they approved the plan, the city plan, the master plan, would then it start? So the 180 days is included in that 1 year? Because that's 6 months. So is that
Yes.
included?
No,
in the 1
I think the air quality monitoring could start tomorrow. I think we have the budget.
Oh,
and
yeah. Well, sure.
All I'm saying is it would know sooner until we have a year's worth of study, because the smog and noise and all that stuff changes based on the seasons. So I think it's important to go through 1 full year of monitoring and have that under our belt before we make a determination whether we should allow or deny more truck terminals. So the sooner we get those air quality things up, the better, because we'll have more time. We can run these time slots in parallel. While the master plan committee is working, we can have the air quality folks monitoring the air.
Yeah, and the only thing with the air quality monitoring is these units, it's not like we're going to have a dozen of these all around, all around the city, or dozens of them.
There's just a couple that were budgeted on the north side.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, is it's not going to give you a complete picture, but certainly Southampton Road would be one of the roads you want to get the high end of whatever it is. Maybe North Road, maybe, wherever there's other Holyoke Road now has a lot of trucks on it. But so I definitely think it's a great idea to monitor it. I think a year is it will give you a lot of data for sure. And again, like you said, I mean, seasonally the air quality changes with the seasons. Like when you have high pressure coming in the winter and it's very stagnant air mass, it's similar to high pressure in the summer sitting over you for a long period of time, but it's hot in the summertime. Winter, those don't last all that long. In summer, it can last for weeks, and you build up a lot of low-level ozone. That's due to the emissions from vehicles and that kind of thing. So in the summer, ozone is a bigger problem. I would think most of these trucks have good, upgraded or updated exhaust, and they're not. But again, I think it's the ozone is probably that's the lung irritant. That's bad for people. So I don't know if that's the concern with mostly for the residents, or is it something else? I would even say let's do a noise study. I mean, if the decibels, the noise study could be very interesting to see as well, because with trucks make a lot of noise. When they hit a pothole, when they hit a railroad track, when they accelerate, they put air brakes. Whatever it is, that might be an interesting thing to do too. But I'm all for doing a study, and I think the end result is it improves the quality of life for people, because we have the data.
Right.
So, and I like the 180 days. I like that idea. 30 days. When I saw that, I thought that's not long enough. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about how long it takes for us to change zones. That there is it takes months to change zoning. So, Councilor Matthews-Kane.
Thank you. 2 points. I also thought the 30 days was quick, as long as Attorney Reed finds it favorable. I guess that's the key component. It has to be reasonable. In terms of the air study, first, I couldn't support that in general more. I just don't understand why we're tying it to this truck moratorium. If we get really bad results back from the air study, couldn't we just do a second new one? Why do we have to tie them together?
We could, yeah.
I again, like sometimes I feel like we make it too complicated. Like if
this one automatically.
Say again?
This one would automatically expire. The moratorium would expire.
Yeah,
so I
but
was trying to make it so it wouldn't expire.
It seems like the study would be done within the year. So I've got to be honest. I really support the study. If the air quality is bad, I want to extend I want there to be a truck ban if it's harming residents' health, but I don't necessarily think we have to tie these two together. Like we could do a new truck moratorium based on those results after they came in, it seems to me.
Well, what if they don't put them in until, January of 2023? Like it's already January 2022. I have no idea what the status of these devices is. What if they don't get installed till January 23?
Well, I guess I don't have enough information to make the decision. It seems like we should know what the timeline is for these or more about
Okay.
them. Somebody has an
So I'll
answer.
check with the mayor and see if he has a status on those. I'm not sure what the status is. Does anybody else on the call the status of those?
Somebody had their hand raised.
Nobody, I can't, let's see.
Is it please the chair?
Oh, Councilor Mello, yes.
About an hour ago, it was reported in the Natural Resources Committee that Peter Miller actually was received an award of the air sensor grant program that he applied for last fall. So they will be here shortly.
Okay, great. Fantastic, and thank you to Councilor Mello for keeping us up to date. All right, any other commentary about the temporary moratorium? Because I'd like to hold this till next week as well. There's no pressing rush on this, but we know there is a project in the works and we don't want to let this drag out forever.
Just
Mr. Vincent.
real
Yes.
quickly, if I may. The original motion was for a 1-year moratorium, so that's kind of how that date ended up aligning with the master plans.
Okay, great. Okay, is there a motion to hold this till next week, Councilor
Yeah.
Martinelli?
Motion to hold in committee, hold item number 5 on the truck moratorium in committee.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Matthews Kane.
yes.
Councilor Morganelli.
Yes.
Okay, 3-0 hold it. Okay. Item number 6, a review of existing regulations pertaining to sober living homes and to research and provide recommendations for local regulations for sober living homes in the city of Westfield. This came in 2019 from Councilor Surprise. Again, I talked to Attorney Reed today, and I believe she sent us all the email that discussed the items that we had before. We had talked about this in committee before. So the opinion from the law department today is that the local municipalities can't regulate these types of living facilities other than potentially related to public safety, like fire extinguishers and sealing, water systems and all that. But we can't say that you can't have a sober living home in Westfield or that there's any special regulations. So I'm going to recommend that we move this from committee without action. The only thing she said we could do is related to the fire system and the safety system. So I'm going to recommend removal without action. Does anybody want to make that motion? Councilor Mornelli?
Yeah, I remember, and I remember speaking about that. I was on ZPD with Councilor Surprise back then, and when this came in, and there really is nothing we can really do with it because of those things. So a motion to remove from committee without action.
Councilor Matthews Kane, before we continue discussion.
Point of order, we're making motions before we've discussed this. I have much to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I rescind my motion for the time being.
Okay, accept the rescinding. Councilor Morganelli, yes.
Yes.
Councilor Matthews Kane.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Okay. Discussion, Councilor Matthews Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I apologize. I didn't see a hand up.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, things were moved. I was like, wait a second. So I should have spoken sooner. I apologize.
Yeah, sorry. We had discussed it before you were on this committee, so that's why I knew the history. So, okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, I know much about the history too, because
Okay.
the
You looked it
sober
up.
living home
You were there, I think.
that precipitated Councilor Surprise motion is in my ward.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with Attorney Reed that we cannot regulate these. The people in them are considered to be disabled. It's legally impossible. But it is possible to have fire regulations or to require sprinklers. And I have an article in front of me about a fire in an unregistered sober living facility in Worcester from November 2020. And we could regulate this. We could insist on there being fire suppression systems. It's unclear to me why we're not discussing that.
Ms. Kane, Attorney Reed told us that fire regulations are underneath the fire department. So they're the ones that work with those regulations. She didn't believe the city council had a role in that, but I think we can regulate pretty much anything we wanted to if we created ordinances. Go ahead, Council Matthews King.
So he said a past lawsuit in Fitchburg shows cities and towns are within their rights to require sprinklers in sober living facilities, and believes that's a necessity because those in recovery might be less likely to advocate for themselves and be more at risk. Could we do that if we wanted to? I mean, I guess that's two separate questions. Could we require an ordinance that sober living homes in Westfield have to have a fire suppression system? And B, do we want to do that?
Go ahead, Council Morganelli.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so is this the actual motion you have listed on the agenda, or is it just a summary? Because we have to look at the exact actual motion, because if it doesn't include doing that, and plus that would be what kind of an ordinance would that be? The fire regulations, that's not even, I don't even know if that's is that council or is that the fire commission, or I'm not sure that's us.
Right. So the motion was submitted was a review of existing regulations pertaining to sober living homes and to research and provide recommendations for local regulations for sober living homes in the city of Westfield.
Okay, so it's to review existing, which we can review and we can come with the conclusion, but we can't. I don't believe we can't propose. That has to be another motion.
What's the word recommend mean then?
No, I think we can make recommendations. Sure.
Send a recommendation to the fire commission, Dave, or
somewhere else. Yeah, I think Councilor Matthews has a good point. I mean, we should look at whether we can regulate it. I mean, we can certainly create ordinances for just about anything in Westfield. Mm-hmm. But I believe Councilor Reed's opinion is that it was a fire department issue, because there are already fire regulations for buildings that have certain density in them, and renters and stuff like that. Okay, Councilor Matthews King.
Could we make additional ones? That sounds legal to me. Her point is true that there are already many regulations, but that doesn't mean we can't add regulations.
No, but I don't think we can discriminate based on the type of resident in the building. That's part of the issue. So if the building has, 10 people and 100 square feet, that's a certain density, we can say that applies to everybody, I believe. Okay, Council Matthews King.
Can we ask Attorney Reed to research laws in other communities? It looks like Fitchburg has one. I'd be curious to know, and I'd prefer if she researched it.
Okay.
And I can specifically cite Fitchburg, and I think Worcester does too, although I could be wrong on Worcester. And I'm curious what other communities are doing. This is the one thing we can regulate.
Perfect. Okay. So are you going to make a motion to hold in committee so that we can do further research?
I'd like to make a motion to hold in committee and to have, do I have to do Attorney Reed?
No, we'll vote to make you the point person, and you can ask Attorney Reed all the questions, because she can't talk to both of us because of the quorum issue.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to hold in committee, please.
And I'd like to amend that motion to make Councilor Matthews Kane the research point for this item. Councilor Morganelli.
Yeah, so the discussion, it says provide recommendations for local regulations, but in the context of the sober living homes existing regulations right now don't involve fire suppression. I just think I guess we can make that recommendation, but I just think if this is a separate motion, I don't think that this is something we should be acting on right now. I'm not saying let's not do the work and go forward with it, but then I say bring it into the council with a motion to amend certain a motion to send a recommendation to the fire department to add this, or we can look at the ordinances and see if we can change what's there now. But I don't think the current, and I don't have it in front of me, but
Yeah,
the
no,
current,
I think, Nick, it's broad enough that we can allow Councilor Matthews Kane to do research and come back to us with recommendations. And then one of her recommendations might be that we resubmit through council, or that we recommend the fire commission do something, or the planning do something. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
okay, well, Mr. Chairman, if you, then I'll second it.
Okay, roll call. Councilor Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Councilor Morganelli,
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. So we're holding in committee. We're going to make Councilor Matthews Kane the point person, and we'll add it to our next agenda and keep it on our agenda until you're happy with the action. There's no time pressure whatsoever on this one. It's been around for a while. Okay, item number 7, discuss goals and action steps related to the following motion: that an ordinance for home occupation and home businesses, section 5-100.1, be reviewed and amended. It came in from Councilor Morganelli, and Councilor Morganelli sent us a markup today. I'm not sure we can complete this today, but I think your intention to have us discuss it and bounce some ideas off. So I'm going to hand it over to Councilor Morganelli.
Yeah, and I'll thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll also say thank you to Jay Vinsky for hanging around in case we have a question that only he can answer. So let's just review. So on the city website under zoning is where you find information on home-based businesses. So there's home occupation and home-based businesses. So the home occupation, and I talked to Jay about this. The home occupation part and the next section are the home business part. There's some redundancy in there. And one of the things we can probably do is clean it up a little bit. Because look, if you've got a business in your home, and then you're just working in your home office, that's one thing. If you're working in your home office, and then you have, let's say you do taxes, but then now you have people coming to prepare their taxes, and you have people coming to your house, and you're having clients come in. Well, that's different than just working out of your home, basically. But because of COVID, some things have come to my attention from people that wanted to have businesses in their homes, but they ran into some roadblocks with that because of different things. So just going through the highlighted things, and I'll just make this quick. So the definition, it says retail or wholesale supply shop or store, and that's in both. I highlighted that because if someone made something, if they were a crafter, they made nice cutting boards, or they did some metal work, or they were an artist and they had paintings and they wanted to sell them out of their home, why can't they? That's something that if someone lost their job because of COVID and they wanted to sell, they were really talented in a certain area and they had this ability and they wanted to start, it says that that's something that shall be specifically excluded from this. No customers, clients, students, or pupil on-site visits. So the first one, basically, you're in your house and you're working by yourself and you're not having anyone come. That's basically what that's saying. So let's go to section 5-100.2, home-based business, because it's the same things are in here. So it says excluded are clinic, veterinary, hospital, restaurant, retail, or wholesale supply shop or store. So it says retail, supply shop, or store, that you can't do that in your home-based business. So I'd like to see that changed. I know that would please the people who have spoken to me. Item C6, not generate an average of more than one delivery pickup vehicles per day. And so it talks about deliveries and that kind of thing. In this, you could have someone that has a pool and a patio, and they have weekend barbecues at their house, and there's 20 cars there every Saturday, and no one can say anything about it all summer long. This is a business that might have one or two, maybe a few cars, and maybe they have an event like, oh, I'm going to have an art gallery show. Come on over on this date and let's see what I have, and you can purchase my artwork. I don't see why that can't happen. And it's got specifics in there about box trucks and how big things can be. item 7, C7 on the ordinance. It says any noise or traffic. So it should not generate impacts which are inconsistent with the residential neighborhood, nor produce any noise or traffic. So that pretty much says it has to comply with what that residence, that neighborhood has already. So to that, I think we need to look at that only because let's say it's a wood shop and you have a saw going and it's making a lot of noise every day. If somebody's, they're running a business out of their home to sell wood products and they run their saw. Maybe there's some things that, that we need to have done so that that's mitigated or something. But I think noise or traffic is it's very general there. It has to match the neighborhood. But if it's in a residential area, I think we need to allow some leeway there so that they can still conduct business out of their home. And that says only be conducted within the enclosed area of a dwelling unit or accessory structure. So yeah, business is inside, but who knows if they like say have a metal worker and they make yard ornaments and they have a couple out on their yard as displays. It's their yard. So what's wrong with that? So there's all these things just, all these things come up and it's something I've been thinking a lot about over the last few months, and people have come to me with information. And then it says the certificate of occupancy from the building inspector for any structure or portion thereof. So that there's that. I don't see any problem with that if they have a garage or they want to use a section of their home to have their business in. But then it says not store materials or goods or supplies. Why can't they store goods? If we're going to allow a tap room to manufacture beer and then have people come in and sample it, why can't someone make something and then have some there, for sale? So I think that's why that's in there. I have to talk more with Jay about this, so maybe Jay has a comment about that one. And then number 13, the last one, is just signage. And I did talk to Jay about this too, and it just can't be a big sign. And they only allow like a 1 foot by 1 foot sign. Obviously, not going to put a lawn sign, a big sign out there, neon in the neighborhood. But I think 1 by 1's kind of small. I don't know if maybe that's something we can address, but I don't really have a huge problem with number 13. As long as people can have a sign so that when people, they have an address to go to if they're going to go there, and that's it.
Okay. All right, I have comments, and I was around when this thing was created, so I'm going to express some opinions and some
I
history.
was too, yes.
Yeah, let's go to Councilor Matthews Kane though first before I weigh in.
You can weigh in first.
Okay, so I was around when this was created, and it was a concern, in some neighborhoods that the traffic in their neighborhood or the character of the neighborhood was being changed by having businesses in the residential area. And there was also a desire to have businesses in the core district and other places where businesses are allowed, business A, C, commercial districts, core districts, industrial business, and that should be encouraged. We should encourage, businesses to be in those areas, not be in residential area. And that is one of the primary reasons we have zoning laws, is to separate the uses so that, it's nice for the residents and the businesses that are in the neighborhood. We don't want to just allow anything to be in the middle of residential neighborhoods. It creates, problems. And Council Matthews Kane lives on a street that's got a blend, and, the characteristics of that neighborhood have changed over the years because of having businesses in there. Up where I am, there aren't any businesses, but I know people have businesses in their house called home occupations. Many people up here have home offices where they actually do work and they create handcrafts or things like that, but they don't allow traffic. They manufacture, maybe they sell the stuff on eBay or the artsy one, that kind of stuff. So that's why it got divided into two things, a home occupation and a home business. The home occupation was basically no customers, clients, students. That was people who work at home and do things. And that was going to be a by right for the most part, as long as they complied with the certificate of occupancy. The zoning permit is just a piece of paper you send to the building inspector. It doesn't require anything other than a review by the building inspector. The signage we talked about, we picked that 6 square feet because it's the same as campaign signs and other accessory signs. But we talked in the past about most of these kind of places are, like I said, a tax person, or a music teacher, and they want to put their name on their building right next to their front door. That's what the small sign is about. So the first one was pretty easy. Home occupation, it's rather limited. There's no change in traffic or noise or anything for the neighbors. You know, it's kind of a in the building thing. Somebody's doing something out of their house. The other one was to allow businesses to be conducted out of a house. And as you mentioned, there's people that are in woodworking and music lessons and taxes and other personal legal services that work out of the house, and they might have a split thing where the house is one part and the business is another. And at the time, there were concerns from neighbors that we didn't want to make this just by right. They wanted to do a special permit. So several people in Westfield came in and talked about. They said, okay, if you're going to change the characteristics of our neighborhood by allowing somebody to sell out of their garage or out of their house or some way generate more traffic, then we want to have a special permit. So that's why the special permit language got in there. So for the home-based business, you still have to go to the building office, get the CO, get the building inspector to say things are okay, and then you have to get a special permit from the planning board to allow you to operate a business out of your home. And that gives your neighbors a notification process. They'll get notified of that special permit. They'll be able to come in and say, you know what, I don't want to have this particular type of business in my neighborhood. So that's why that was set up that way. And that's why some of these truck delivery things are in there and the hours of operation. That was all based on feedback during the public hearings when we had this come in before. I agree that we should probably loosen it up, but I don't think we should go against the general principles of why this thing is here in the first place. And that was to protect the character of residential residential zones. And we did have a couple people come in and talk to us about this. I remember there's one up in Ward 5 that wanted to do something out of the house, and it was like a Tupperware type party thing. One of those people, generally they're ladies that run resale for plastic things and makeup and that kind of stuff. And they wanted to do parties on a regular basis at their house. And I believe their neighbors complained and somebody came in and talked to us at city council. But that's the only one I remember where there was an issue. And I don't know how many have come before planning board for that special permit, but I can't imagine it's a lot. I don't know. Okay, Councilor Morganelli.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the one of them that I forgot, and you reminded me, and I'll make this quick because I want to let Councilor Matthews-Kane give some comments. Number 4, C4, under no customers, clients, students, or pupil on-site visits. All personal contact off premises. There's people, that are not complying with that now. I don't think that's, if someone is talented and they're teaching guitar and they have lessons or tutoring, what about a math tutor or something in their home? That's a legitimate thing. And you've got 1, maybe 2 cars showing up at the time of the lesson. I just think we can, like you said, and I agree with you, loosen it up, and I'm not looking to change all these highlighted things at all. This is just the things I wanted to talk about. But number 4, C4 is definitely one. And then about selling the materials, allowing someone to sell something. And it's not really changing the character of the neighborhood because they're in their home. They're not going to change the structure of their home, or, there might just be a car showing up once in a while to buy something or to meet with the person or to have a service done. So I don't think it would do that. But I like the ordinance in general. I like it. I just think it can be better. That's all. And I think that
I think you're right.
Because of COVID, that's why this came up. That's all.
Okay, Councilor Matthews-Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the explanation of how this came to be. That was very helpful. speaking for myself as a city councilor, I have not heard from one person who wanted these loosened up. So in my area, I'm not hearing that. And be as somebody who lives in a mixed residential business district, it does change the character. And if we had even more people in my neighborhood, having more people coming in and out, it would become very busy in what is already a very busy section of the city. And I would like to try to drive the businesses downtown into our commercial districts. If we're spreading it out, it all becomes diffused. Actually, businesses do better when they're grouped together. And I've been really impressed with some of the new businesses opening up on School Street, and they'll actually let local people come in, especially I'm thinking of that Hilltown Chic, like she's selling local craftspeople. So if you want, you can go in there and try and sell her stuff, and then it's all in one area. It's in a commercial district. So based on my own experience and the fact that I am not hearing from constituents about this, I'm not really in favor of loosening it up much. I'd be willing to hear arguments on specific things. And I also think that the fact that this isn't being enforced is not a good reason to just change the rules. And I think it's important that, you know, if people can report, like, let's say somebody's having people coming in and out. And it sounds to me, Councilor Flaherty, if I'm mistaken, if somebody's having customers coming, can they switch it to a home-based business? Can they switch from home occupation? So if somebody wants to do that, if I understand you correctly, you're saying if they have a home occupation and they want clients to come, they can switch to a home-based business and get the permit, and there'll be a public hearing, correct?
Yeah, that requires a fee and the public hearing process for the special permit. Yeah. But so, I think, I think what Councilor Morganelli is looking at mostly is personal services or small services like piano lessons or taxes, things like that, which don't really generate a lot of traffic. And separating that from the businesses that do, like manufacturing of, let's say you make cutting boards in your garage and you sell them on weekends, that generates traffic or something. I think there's a difference, but for me, I think we don't want to have too much by right. I would prefer to have some kind of a process. But let's say, like, I have a family member who's a lawyer. He works out of his house, but his clients are all over the country, right? So how can you say anything he does affects his neighbors, right? Or the same with me. I have an office in my basement. I don't have to go to my office down on Cherry Street to do websites and software development or consulting. I could sit here at home, and people on either side of me wouldn't even know that. So I think that's one of the things that is by right. Councilor Matthews-Kane.
But those would be qualified as home occupation, correct?
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yep. And they don't require anything other than a zoning permit, which is kind of an interesting thing. Because one of the things we asked about is, I think about money a lot, right? So if all of a sudden these things are a business, then maybe a portion of their house should be taxed as a business and pay twice the tax per thousand, right? Because they're using it as a business and they're not choosing to go into a business district where they would be taxed at that higher rate. So instead of paying 19 and change 1,000, you're paying 38 1,000. Is that a fair thing to consider? And at the time we talked about that, and this, the tax people say, "Oh, no way, there's no way we can ever track all that stuff." And that is up to the person who owns the business, whether they even declare it on their taxes and try to get right off a portion of their building. There's a whole bunch of stuff that comes into play there. And it just got so complicated, we decided not to even pursue it. But that is one of the differences, right? If a small manufacturer has to pay taxes to be on Elm Street, but they don't to live in their home, that might save them, significant amount of money every year. So, all right, Councilor Matthews-Kane, anything else?
Not right now, no.
Okay. So how about, Nick, you want a motion to leave this in committee and continue working on it?
Yeah, motion to leave in committee.
Second.
Okay, and roll call. Councilor Morganelli?
Yes.
Councilor Matthews-Kane?
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. 3-0 hold in committee. Okay.
Thank you. And I'll try to have something to you in the next couple of meetings so we can
Perfect.
move it out, or it's not going to be big change. So
yeah, No, I think it makes sense to pursue this because of COVID and other things, and to be, to keep up with the times.
Mhm.
A lot of stuff can now happen remotely. Everybody's using Zoom and computers and internet. There's all kinds of stuff. So, all right.
Can I
Item
make
number
a
8 is any. Go ahead, Council Matthews Kane.
Can we have an idea of like what we're changing it to instead of what we want to change? Like I find that would be easier to work with.
Yeah, I think Council Morganelli is going to work on revising it. He just wanted to bring this to us for opening discussions.
Okay,
And then I think he'll have specific proposals written up like a zoning amendment.
perfect.
Because if we do this, we would be the applicants for a zoning amendment, and we would send it to the city, and they would run it through the city council, and we'd send it to planning board, get a recommendation from them, and then bring it back into our committee in final form.
And when did we vote this into committee?
May of
2011 or something?
When?
May of 21.
May of
Oh, this, yeah.
Yep. And there was no clear proposal. It was just discussed to review. So that's one of these things where we can discuss, review it, and make a specific recommendation, and then run it through the process.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it was budget season, and then campaign and election season, and this wasn't something that was pressing.
Yeah.
All right, Mr.
Because
Vice
during
Mayor.
the summer, people were back to work. People were going back to work, and like there wasn't the urgency. But I don't want that to happen again, where
Okay.
people are stuck and they don't have an option.
Okay, Jay, you have something on this topic?
Just briefly, the planning board did talk about this a little bit and kind of finding some in between thing where maybe like a very minor home-based business, maybe a by right type of use. So some types of thresholds that might be a little more generous than current.
Okay.
Is there a specific person I should talk to, Jay, other than yourself?
No, we can probably get something drafted and then maybe.
All right, I'll follow up with you in the next week or two.
Okay. All right, item 8 is any other items not contemplated at the time of agenda creation. Does anybody councils have anything to add for the meeting? No, Councilor Matthews Kane, no. Councilor Morganelli?
And a snow Saturday. Not as much as we could have gotten, though.
You know what I think it is, Nick, these kids are afraid to go out and shovel because it creates a home business. There's no kids around here shoveling. And now that the IRS is whacking them every time they get $600, no kid's gonna want to do that. They're gonna want to be paid in greenbacks.
They'll just collect their allowance. How come I don't?
Yeah,
I don't
no Venmo or PayPal for those kids. They want it in cash. So, all
cash
right.
business, yep.
So, item number 9, Councilor Matthews Kane.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, roll call. Councilor Matthews Kane.
Yes.
Councilor Morganelli, yes.
Yes, and thank you to Peter
Yeah.
Kroll's behind the scenes and Jay
Yeah.
Vinsky for staying.
It's not, he's not here. He's in, I think he's on his way to Florida.
Oh, well, whoever's behind the
We have to
scenes.
stay back there.
Birthday.
Oh, poor.
And it's his birthday tomorrow.
Oh, that's
Wow.
right.
Wow. I don't even know what the launch is.
Recording stopped.
Oh,
Oh, so here's something interesting. Is he down in Brownsville?